All right, so the reason that I wanted to do this little talk with you is, one, because we share a relative.
Oh, really?
We share Hadley.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
right.
us family, right?
Right.
And Hadley's little brother who's coming.
Has he got a name?
He doesn't yet, but I think
We're not sure yet.
he doesn't have a name yet. They want to see his face. See if he looks like Jack or Fred or.
Right. Well, you know, I'm waiting for a haircut. Margaret's friend who has a salon or something. She stops by. I hope she's coming soon.
Well, you mentioned that you have all of these grandchildren and all these great-grandchildren, and it doesn't stop there. They're just going to keep coming.
I know
Long
that.
after you and I are gone, they're going to keep coming. And it's as important for me to know that Hadley and her children and her grandchildren know something about me as it is
I would think so.
for
Yeah.
them to know about you.
That's very
and
nice.
You're the patriarch of this family. It's a very large family, so we need to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an interesting guy, so I'm going to ask you some stuff out of my own curiosity around news and your career with the Baltimore Sun, which obviously influenced your son Paul.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And then some things about your family.
Well, Paul's been down there. He's
Let me
30-some years.
Make sure the microphone doesn't rub on your sweater.
I don't care. This thing.
It's gonna. If it rubs on there, it will make a horrible.
What does this say? Colorado? I don't even know where it came from. I've got a couple that say Baltimore Sun, but
That's fine. You're fine. I just didn't want the mic to rub on it.
look at this.
No.
But this is my favorite one, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
So going back to, we're going to start from the beginning. 1926. I know you wouldn't have any memories of that.
Well, I start before 46.
26. You were born. Right?
Oh, I was born in 25.
25.
Yeah,
Okay. So what would be where were you born? In Baltimore?
I was.
In a hospital?
No, on a kitchen table.
On a kitchen table?
Well, in my grandmother's house.
Oh,
It's not far from here, actually.
where was that?
It's down in Govins, which is the next community down. It's not what it used to be.
Guilford?
Oh, no. We
Guilford Avenue, I mean?
Oh, well, I went after married. I lived on Guilford Avenue.
Right.
Well, you want to start? I was born on McCabe Avenue, and you wouldn't walk down there now. I don't think.
I know the neighborhood.
It's got, I think, yeah, right.
It
Well,
was nice at one time. It was a very,
well, it was a middle. I don't know if you can say middle class. What everybody did their job, and that was it.
So tell me about when you were born. What was the life there? You were living with your grandmother, your parents? And which grandmother was it?
It was my mother's mother.
Your mother's mother.
Yeah. They just rented a house on McCabe Avenue, and that's a good question you gave me. Obviously, we were living there. I never asked that question. Yeah, I'm sure we were, because we were. It was less than a year when I was born, I guess. Let's figure it out. They were married in 24, and I was born in September the 1st of 25, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you were the first child, obviously.
For them.
And then you had how many after that? How many brothers and sisters?
I had 3 sisters and 1 brother.
All right. So when this picture was taken...
Oh, yeah, that's his baptism.
You told me how your grandmother made that christening outfit.
Well, that was my father's mother, and actually she died before I was born. Although, I mean, I was expected, but she died.
She never got
You
to
know
see
what?
it?
They got that framed over there. This is a much better picture because it shows the baby and all.
Yeah. You could have that one.
Oh, you sure?
Absolutely. And I have another one for you.
Well, this is my one sister,
How was she?
94.
She was in the hospital around Christmas.
Well, she's in a rehab right now, but it's only, 20 days or something? And then she should be going,
Okay.
hopefully, back to where she was.
So what happened to your father's mother?
I don't know what she died of.
Okay, but she didn't get to see you. That's
She
very
didn't get
sad.
to see me. No.
And here she made that christening gown that has been worn by every baby who followed you.
Mm-hmm. I think all was one, but anyhow. Okay?
She couldn't have imagined, right?
No, she didn't came, Mike.
What's your earliest memory living there in Govins?
Well, go it. So I worked in a corner grocery store. And,
Well, let's back up. Where'd you go to school?
I went to St. Mary's and parochial school on Homeland Avenue here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that is? Right next to Notre Dame.
I sure do.
Yeah. And
And what did you want to do when you grew as a boy? What did you want to do? Did you always like photography?
no, not at all. I don't know. Everybody said they thought I'd be a priest, but I don't think. I think they think it more now because I'm catching up on my religion.
Did you entertain that idea as a younger man?
I'm not past the 8th grade.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
But you've always been spiritual with your Catholic Church and...
definitely. And I, for instance, in the 7th and 8th grade, they picked 2 boys to be the altar boy at the Notre Dame convent, where there are a lot of nuns over there.
Yeah.
And I had the 7. They picked me and another person. The other person, his father. The other person lived on the campus because his father was bus driver, everything, whatever, for them.
Why do you think they picked you when you didn't have those kinds of connections?
I think our family was connected to the church. We didn't go to them for anything or anything like that, but we went to mass and we did our everything.
So they knew you from...
My mother, yeah, my mother-in-law. She loved the rosary. So, yeah.
So what do you think your earliest memory of wanting to be something was?
Well, the earliest memory is to be a photographer, a newspaper photographer, and that was when I was in probably the 2nd grade of high school.
Wow.
Okay.
Because you had a camera?
No, I'd never been in the dark room, or I didn't know how to take a picture or anything else. And that's the story. I had pretty much of a scholarship to Loyola High School, and I just didn't do my job. I didn't do the work and stuff. So then you went over to Towson Catholic High School. You ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. They've closed recently. I mean, well, a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I got bored. I was in the junior year, and I got bored, and I said, I knew a photographer from the News American. That was another paper in town, the Hearst paper.
I know it well. I did my internship there.
Who?
My internship. I did at the News American.
Oh, you did? Yeah, but that's in younger years.
I left in 84, right before they went belly up.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
But go ahead.
Okay.
You knew a photographer from the News American?
Yeah, Jimmy Calmartin. And his girlfriend went to Towson Catholic at the same time. Anyhow. So I just went down and at the beginning of the summer, I went in and said, I'm looking for a photographer's job, or however you anyhow. But they sent me, in those days, they had a commercial photo department. There's only 2 people. And they went out and everything was stick drawings. They had a big artist, a lot of artists that drew the furniture and all that stuff. And we would take pictures of it and bring it back, and they'd take from the picture. Okay. And I call them stick drawings. That's what they basically were. Have you probably seen some of those?
So they were mapping out what they wanted you to take a picture of with the stick drawings?
No, they were, after I took the picture, they would draw the picture.
Oh,
I mean, the furniture itself. So they didn't, nowadays they'd photograph it or whatever they do. And anyhow, the one fellow had just gone in the Navy. So I got the job. They said, okay. And I'd never been in the dark room when I worked. And I went in because Bill Sussman, he was in charge of that part of it. He was also an artist. He taught me a lot.
You taught you how to develop the
But I
feeling.
spent a lot of my time, I get off 6 o'clock in the evening or something, with the news staff and whatever they did at night and all.
Right.
Following, I mean,
Just
anyhow.
seeing how they did
I covered the International League of Orioles. I do that and everything.
Yeah.
So, anyhow,
And how old were you when you started that job?
let's see, 16, I think.
16.
Yeah.
So do you remember what they were paying you?
Yeah, $25 a week.
Wow.
And
And you were still in school?
no, I didn't go back to school.
But you quit school? You left?
I have equivalency
I
business.
see.
But
you loved it.
I liked traveling with the news staff, and we went on anything that went on, ball games, and I covered. I remember you had an Army Navy game that one year.
What was your favorite kind of work to go out on? Sports? News?
News,
Features?
yeah, I like news. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty close. Well, most of them were in the Army and or Navy or wherever they were. It was wartime. We're talking 43,
45.
40, no, when
When you started at 45. Did you know Lee McCardell, the war correspondent?
I knew Lee pretty well,
But
but
he
I
was he
didn't,
related to you?
no.
Isn't that interesting?
And,
Same spelling and everything.
Right. His son-in-law has an editor to letter today in his Sun. It's a letter to the editor. And he's praising Bill Tutton. Sports editor from the Sun.
The current sports editor?
No, he was the Evening Sun sports editor.
Oh, wow.
But currently the McCardell boy, it's his middle name is McCardell. He is an alumni, head of the alumni at Boys Latin.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I knew his mother well, but I didn't know him too much. His mother was a Kennedy after she married. And her father-in-law was a congressman. Kennedy, I don't know if you ever heard of him or not.
Let me interrupt that story a minute. I want to go back because you were 16 at the Baltimore Sun, but at some point you were working at a floral shop delivering flowers.
Exactly.
Was that before or after you started at the Sun?
That was before. So I was 16, so I've been maybe 17 when we went. When I went to the Sun, okay? I know I'm gonna. I don't want to get confused on these,
Okay.
I didn't know we get down to.
Yeah, I'm getting too detailed, too specific. I'm just trying to map out a timeline here.
Okay, well,
Because you met your wife at the floral job, and I want to.
that's where I met my wife. At the
Tell me
floor.
about when you met her.
We had greenhouses. It was called Moss Florists, and they were probably the biggest in the city in those days. It was at Woodburn and York Road. They had about 6 greenhouses, although they had other ones on Bologna Avenue farther up. But anyhow, I would take flowers down to the store, which is a block away from the Belvedere Hotel. It was on Charles Street, right at Biddle Street. Okay?
I know Charles.
Okay, it's the first. When I first went in, I met her. She was working the weekends. We only work weekends. And another thing, I like to drive. They had a nice station wagon, and that was part of getting the job too, I guess. But I met her, and I gave her a Hershey bar. And on my 75th, what was it? Yeah, I'm trying to keep this straight.
Your anniversary.
My anniversary, she died in 13. Anyhow, she gave me a card, a Hershey bar, and it said, "I love you" or something on it. And But
Do you remember the first time you saw her?
yeah, it was in this florist shop.
And
She
what-
was very good at putting flowers together, corsages and things like that. She made it. That's what she do on the weekend. But she lived within a block of the place. She lived at 3 West Biddle Street. Now, they're big 4-story houses, and they're big rooms each. They had a working fireplace in every room in the house, bedrooms and everything. Her father was a doctor. And he had an office on the first floor. And the whole block in those days was doctors. And they have an office on the first floor. And then they lived in the house. So where do I go from there?
So I'm just wondering, at what point did you know that this girl making flowers, Daddy's a doctor, at what point did you know that you wanted to spend your life with her, that you wanted to ask her to marry you? And do you remember how you did it?
We knew each other about 7 years before we got engaged. So she went with other boys, and I went with other girls. Okay? So, but there was never anything serious with her with another boy or vice versa. I just decided that I wanted to marry her. You're asking, going back and stuff I don't think about so much.
Do you remember how you asked her? How you proposed?
I think, yeah. I remember how I gave her an engagement ring. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
We went to I was 25, and she's a year older than I am. So we were at a dance at the Maryland Yacht Club, and I gave her a ring that night. And the Maryland Yacht Club used to be where that South Baltimore General Hospital is, where the Harbor Hospital. That was the Maryland Yacht Club.
Oh, wow.
And it was actually at Swan Park. And what is it? Which park is that down there? Swan's.
Remember the park? I know it's on the Towson.
Well, it was a park. It had the big house on at the Maryland Yacht Club. They had a deal with the city that my second cousin was the controller of the state. I mean the city.
Okay.
With Alessandro. You've heard that name, yeah. And he had 2 terms.
I'm not a Nancy fan.
Well,
I knew who Tommy's daughter.
I photographed Nancy, and the mother named Nancy too. She was the one that ran things, and her deal was, you don't get mad, you get even. You understand? In the political line. Maybe I'm going too fast now.
That's okay. No, keep going.
But
So was she surprised when you asked her? Or she knew it was coming?
I don't think she knew it. Well, yeah, she knew it was coming before I gave her the ring. I asked her, I guess, we had a date, I don't even remember.
Okay. So you got married in 1950. Do you remember the wedding day?
Oh, yeah, September the 9th, 1950.
What do you remember about what stands out in your memory about the wedding day?
Well, our honeymoon, we actually just took off driving, and went to Williamsburg, came back the old mountain route. What's it? They stopped and saw some of the tourist tracks. I guess when he went down into this underground. Sarah and I got along pretty well. Her mother ran things.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Is that when
She
you
was
first...
very.
Sorry.
But no, it's okay.
Go ahead. You can say.
I mean, she was into everything.
The mother.
Yeah, my mother. But anyhow.
But did you right away start living then on Guilford Avenue when you got married? That came later.
No, we had, yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's see. We lived there with 9 West Monument Street, right down by the Washington Monument. And when we had our second child, we moved there, and that was just a rental apartment. In those days, they had rent control. So during the war, they had rent control, and it was still, I think we paid $66 a month rent. A one bedroom, a nice bathroom and living room and small kitchen. I'll tell you who lived right over top of me, and we were very good friends. Russ Baker, remember him?
The author?
Yeah.
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 One of his books.
He wrote 2 books. He wrote The Good Life, I think he called it, about the newspaper, and he used all the names of the guys that were editors in it. And he won a Pulitzer Prize with the other one.
Growing Up?
Growing Up, right, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, Russell was a good friend. He died, a year ago, 2.5. He had a fall and never got over it. Anyhow, he was living in Virginia.
I wonder if I could turn this lamp on over here.
Oh, sure, but I don't know if it's going to do much
Maybe
good.
just to get a little light over here on your face.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You can take the shade off if you want. You think it would do any more?
See, he's a photographer. You can tell. He's already got some good ideas.
You want me to take your papers or something?
I'll put it here and see.
That's going to fall on that pile. Yeah, set it out anywhere. You can take the shade off if you wish. I don't know.
Maybe that's probably better. Is that hard on your eyes?
Hmm?
Is that hard on your eyes?
No. Don't bother me.
So you had your first baby in 51. Next baby came probably soon after.
It came in December of 52. Sally was born in July of 51. Mary Angela in December the 9th. She'll be, what's she going to be this year? She's up there now in her 70s. Her husband just died, yeah. But they live in Texas.
You said your wife, Sarah, she died in 2013. What do you think you would like Hadley and the rest of the next generations to know about her, since it's impossible for us to know Sarah?
If she met you, she knew your not just knew your background as such, but you were figured out real fast. I don't know if that's. Do you agree with that?
Definitely.
So
You had a good read on people.
she did. She did.
Couldn't get anything by her, right?
Huh?
Couldn't get anything by her, right?
Right. You couldn't. She didn't. She wasn't the smartest academically person. She went to Notre Dame Prep School.
Making sure this doesn't rub on anything, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, Notre Dame Prep was a good school. Notre Dame Prep was a good school.
Well, I was over on the college grounds in those days.
Oh.
They didn't have it was a high school, but they didn't have anything lower than a high school and all that stuff.
Right.
And that's when I was the altar boy, actually, but that had nothing to do with her. I didn't know her in those days even.
How would you describe her as a mom?
She was a good mother, really. The kids all are saying that these days, every day. Mom was really a good mother. She liked to watch those soap operas, though, in the daytime. And she would be watching that. And Margaret says, I'd come home from school, and she'd say, Margaret, do you feel like eating some crackers and cheese? And Margaret said, oh, sure. She said, well, fix me some, too, while you're at that. In other words, she's good.
That's a good trick. Well, how do you think how do you credit her managing 10 children? I mean, that's a lot. Did she have a lot of help? Did she have, like, her parents help out? You were working a lot,
that
right?
was, I'm not even going to go into that situation.
Oh, because of mother-in-law problem?
Well, I mean, just just ran the show. And unfortunately, I guess you might say, they had one boy, and he became a doctor, an ophthalmologist. And he was money crazy. But anyhow.
You did have one. Was she a maid or a nanny or?
The what? Oh no! She had she would come. She'd go out walking through Waverly or somewhere, because we lived on 30th Street for one time. She'd come home with somebody to do a little cleaning and stuff like that. She would.
Okay.
But she was raised this way. They had to live in person with them. You understand? And that woman did the cooking and everything else. And they sent her to school, though, boarding school for Mount St. Agnes. It's for now Hopkins owns the buildings. Do you know her right along Smith Avenue there? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mount Washington?
That's where she went to grade school. And her sister, too. And it was Mount St. Agnes High School. Actually, in later years, they merged with Mercy High School. Okay? And of course, I lived in Mount Washington, too. We went to Sacred Heart School, if you know where that is. It's right at the entrance to Smith. Well, you got the Mount Washington Tavern and all that stuff in there. Well, I used to be. I only didn't go in there very often. Later on, I mean, when you could drink, when I was of age to drink it all, but it was called Sparwasser, and it was the only bar in the neighborhood.
Right.
But now it's they're all
It's all built up there now.
Yeah, it's
All the news people go to Mount Washington Tavern.
yeah, it's
Now I know about it.
yeah, the I knew Mount Washington Tavern, but it was Sparwassers. That was the guy that owned it. He had a pool table in there, and it was the only bar in Mount Washington. And that's old Mount Washington. That's you get over near the racetrack and all that stuff. That's not Mount Washington. It's, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand.
A lot of these neighborhoods, that's not their name. It's a real estate name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow.
It improves the old neighborhoods. Getting it different.
Okay. Well, you want to go back to what I worked.
Yeah, you want to talk about?
Okay. Well. Okay. So I was working at the commercial photo of the Sun and learning what I could on. So I go for Aubrey Bodine. I went with Aubrey a lot of times on assignments. You ever heard of him?
Aubrey Bodine?
Bodine, photographer? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I remember we went down to the Bay Bridge, or the site of the Bay Bridge, because in those days it was a ferry. 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I think. So the sun didn't come up right. 4 days in a row. I only went 3 of them. I didn't, and stuff like that. But Aubrey also is my wife's second cousin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he had nothing to do with my job. I didn't. In fact, I didn't know he was related to her. Although I went out with him, I didn't know anything about it.
I'm sorry, I gotta move the mic again.
And she never bothered to tell us.
She never mentioned that.
Right.
Kept it from you.
You know, I have
So advantageous.
I have one of these. I could take it out and there's a pocket there. Would you want us to lay that in there?
Well, I don't want to touch it.
Well,
You see, and
can you see that?
it's okay. If you just let it hang out of your sweatshirt, it's okay.
This thing only is good for the phone. My own phone. It covers that area. But if I would fall, for instance, nobody was home.
No, you leave that where it is. It's fine.
So, what else? What was I going to say?
So the commercial part of the photography was separate from news in
Oh,
the
yeah.
beginning for you? See, I didn't even know about that there was this division of photography labor.
Well, then Bodine and a guy named Hans Marks. he probably was the best photographer they ever had down there.
Really? What made him so great?
He just was a good photographer. He's another story. He's worth a movie.
Mm. So he was way ahead of you, though. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
So
Aubrey died in 1970, and Hans, he died a little later. So, but he wasn't. He left the Sun.
when did you get to the news side? Start shooting news.
At the Sun?
Yeah.
No. Okay. I went with my photographers to Preakness in 1945. Okay. So am I messing the dates up?
No, that's what I was thinking. 45 was the year that you started with the Sun. Maybe it's just because that's when you started with news.
I started at the Sun in 44, I guess it would have been. Because I was there about a year in that commercial.
Okay.
And went to the Preakness. A fellow named Howard Caney, head of the AP in Washington, picture-wise. And I asked him for a job. He said, you start in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So,
Did you have your own camera?
I didn't have anything, no. But they supplied everything.
Mm-hmm.
It so happened that one of the Sun photographers, a fellow named Frank Miller, had a sister who lived in Washington, and she rented 2 rooms. During the war, you could not get a room or anywhere, in hotels or anywhere hardly, and but at least permanent. Anyhow, she rented 2, and she had an empty one right at that time. Frank got me in there. I paid her $35 a month, and that was my salary, $35
Wow.
at the AP in Washington. So, okay, then you started. That's when it got more interesting. You see, my first, I think it's in that drawer somewhere. First press card is signed by Sam Rayburn. Was the House of Representatives. You ever heard of the
Oh,
Rayburn?
Rayburn building.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So see, I'm hope you naming names, but so
Interesting.
what's
the most memorable? Give me a couple examples of some of the most memorable shooting experiences that you had while you were with the Sun.
with the Sun or with the AP? See,
okay, well, with the AP.
well, I was only there 4 months when I got drafted,
Oh,
and that was at the end of the war.
wow.
That's when my turn came up to get drafted.
Your number got called, and you had to go? Did you go?
Yeah, I did go. But here's what I'm going to say. When I told Caney, who was a nice guy, that I was going to the Army, he said, this is right after the fighting stopped and all that stuff. In Europe, it stopped first.
Liberated? They were liberated?
Hmm?
Okay, go ahead.
Anyhow, he said, and he only said, I'm considering sending you to Nuremberg to the war crimes trials. I said, well, I got to go in the Army. Oh my God! But it was the word was considering. He didn't say I was going to go, and he had already sent Henry Burroughs, I think, from the staff. But most of their staff was overseas too. I mean, they didn't get drafted. They just sent them over as picture takers.
So when you got drafted, where did you have to go?
I went to Fort Lee for basic training.
Uh-huh.
And
Was that right away? Like you got drafted, and then how soon would you be going?
well, I got drafted. I went in the Army on about the end of September, and then you went right to. You went down to 5th Regiment Armory, if you know where that is, down on Howard Street, because that's the only big thing in town in those days. You didn't have the whatever that Civic Center, whatever they call it now. Well, I did my basic, and doing the basic training, I, the Army doesn't exactly give you the job that you're good for it. I think they took that whole platoon that I was in. Well, I know one guy they took out and sent him to Alabama or somewhere because he was an X-ray technician. So they used him with what he knew already. And it was doing the. I went to the White House News Photographers Dinner, and the president always came and all. And that was in the old Statler Hotel.
Which president was that?
Harry Truman.
Okay.
And,
You met him?
Huh?
Did you get to meet him?
I put these over here because this one picture. That's Mr. Truman, and this is me. But this is 10 years after he was. But there's he spelled. This is a copy.
Oh my
Spelled
goodness.
water. The water guy.
Oh my
It's-
goodness, that's awesome.
See what it says?
To Walter McCardell, kindest regards and happy memories of August 14th, 1948. 45.
Yeah, for
Very true.
Now you see the date is 8 something. That's a year. How many years later?
I see.
That's when I actually was with him there. But I took a lot of pictures in his office, and
That's awesome. That's quite significant.
and a couple of things. We get full pages of pictures in Life magazine and all in those days. I remember they had I'm jumping around again.
That's okay.
When I was, because some of them happened. I was only with the AP 4 months. Then I got drafted. Well, in those days, if you got drafted, and you had to sign a paper that they didn't have to give you your job back, because they didn't, because they drafted all their workers and all, and they had to give them their jobs back. You following me on that? You got it? So you signed a paper, but that had nothing to do with me leaving them.
So when you came back, how long?
Well,
how much time passed?
How about what?
How much time passed after you?
I was in the Army 13 months.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I went to the White House News Photographers Dinner. I'm still in basic training down, but I knew that what the Army did. So I went over and I saw this colonel, and I didn't know him. I just went in and he gave me that and said, I was a photographer for the AP and I'd like to be do that kind of work. Well, because I understand the whole company that trained with me, they made truck drivers out of. So
You knew you didn't want to do that.
yeah, I didn't know it was going to happen that way, but that's what I found out did happen. But anyhow, so I went to the dinner up in the what is it, Woodman Park Hotel. That was a good hotel in those days. Or no, I guess they were in Stafford in those days. I mean, anyhow, I met this major. Tierney was his name, and he said, "Where are you going? Where are you stationed?" I said, "Fort Lee." He said, "I'm the public relations person down there, a major." He said, "Come over and see me." He said, "I think I could use a photographer." Well, okay. So I went to see him, and he got in touch, and they told him, "Well, sorry, we've already assigned him into the military police." And I was not a military policeman as such, but it was more crime lab type stuff. Accidents and stuff like that. A couple suicides and stuff like that.
Did you like that though?
Yeah, well, it was that's part of the news. So I didn't get too upset.
Yeah.
A guy hanging in the back of his. Anyhow, Tierney, he was a nice fellow. I remember. Here's a major. I'm a PFC because I was offered a job at the paper. It's called the Lee Traveler. You ever heard of it? It's still it's the camp newspaper. It's still in business. The Lee Traveler. You know where the name came from?
Robert.
It was Robert E. Lee's horse was named Traveler.
I see. Okay. That was already leaving. I didn't know sports was named traveler.
No, that's what I mean.
That's great.
But what is it? See, I'm jumping all over. I don't know if you
No,
can cut it and
you're,
put it.
you're still on track. So you went into the Army and then you ended up working in
Well,
the
then,
military
then, but then Tierney got me to do it. I did all the work for the paper anyhow, and I enjoyed that. I didn't because the crime lab, as you call it, was not much work, and or as I call it, not much work. But I had a Jeep. See, and they offered to transfer me to the headquarters company. It's an 8-hour job. You go in at 8, you get off at 4. And I had no Jeep, because that Jeep was, I could go where I wanted. I had a siren on one. Anyhow.
So 13 months of that, and then you...
Well,
got
no,
out?
it didn't stay that way. The Army decided that they needed a volunteer army and no more draft. You understand?
This was about 46?
This was 1946, yeah. Yeah, because I went in the end of 45, so I'm going to... Okay, if anybody that was in the service at the end of 46, which I was, is credited with being in the Second World War. Okay?
Okay.
Which, that didn't... I'm not... Anyhow, just a remark. Anyhow, the armies decided we want a volunteer army. We don't want to have to draft people and all. The draft's still in, but they're never going to get it working. The mothers wouldn't allow that again. So they put out, I don't know if you know it, but even today, there are 6 Army areas in the United States. Fort Meade is the headquarters for the 2nd Army area. New York, I think, is the 1st Army. Anyhow, they said they got together a caravan. They called it the Army Caravan. We had big posters. They put them up in these towns before we get there, and the Army Caravan's coming to town. And since Fort Lee was quartermaster, we had their kind of stuff, even K rations and all that. And you had another army area, another place, Aberdeen. I think they didn't take tanks now, but they took some guns and stuff like that. Anyhow, get the picture. You got 6 army areas. So the generals of the camp, general. Anyhow, I just was a cute little boy, and his secretaries, they were all older women. They liked me a lot. They really did.
You were charming them?
Well, I was charming enough to say, "You want to go on one of those shows?"
What kind of show?
I just thought the caravan.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see.
So I said, "Okay." And by the way, Frank Miller, I'm going back. He's the guy who was a photographer at Sun. His sister had the room in Washington. I had this older sergeant said to me, "We got to transfer you to Baltimore." He had gotten me a transfer to Maryland Avenue. You know where that St. Francis business is now, the orphanage or whatever you call it. They help. You know where Maryland Avenue is?
I knew Maryland.
All right, you come down around, it's about 23rd Street, okay? Those red brick buildings and all. That was the Army military police. And you're going over there. We've got to send you there. We've turned the commanding officer Tierney's out of the picture now. He got discharged in the wars, okay. A guy named Levy. And then the military police guy, his name was Hawks. He was the 1st lieutenant. Anyhow, they both said they had requests for me to go to Baltimore twice, and they both said, no, we don't want to let him go. And so I didn't go. But the sergeant said to me, well, you want to go on that show or you want to go to Baltimore? Because we got to do it this time. I'm going on a show. So what part of the country do you want to go to? I thought, well, we went to New England, which is the First Army area. You got it? Anyhow, we traveled. We had a bus. And we had, in the whole caravan, we probably had about 18 big those trucks with the canvas over the top like that.
Right.
They're called 6x6s. And you got $5 a day per diem. Of course, you got your pay, but as a PFC, I was getting $78 a month.
Oh my God.
And you had to
$5
get,
is a lot.
you got a room. You took your room, your food, all came out of that $5 per diem.
Wow.
Well, if things were so much different, I think you could get a decent meal.
Right.
But anyhow, we had a major in charge of our group, so he grabs a 6x6 and a bunch of cots, and they put them in there, and he would go ahead with the publicity business. And he would line up where we could put up these cots in armories around it. I remember, what was it, the 7th Corps Cadet Armory is in Boston or something like that. Anyhow, or American Legion halls or anything. We just move our cots in and sleep there. So we didn't have a room rent. So
Oh, I see.
okay.
So you saved the $5.
Well, you used it to eat and whatever, I guess. Most of those guys were on there. They were old-time sergeants. They were making better money, not good money, but anyhow, you're asking about mine. Okay. So I ended up getting discharged when the show was over and all. I was probably in the Army about three weeks longer, and I got discharged.
So at that time, was it understood what was going on? I mean, here in the United States, was it understood what was going on in Europe?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I mean, you mean the battles and all, the newspapers.
The liberation of the camps and
I don't remember much of that. I mean, I remember I found out later, every place I'd go, I'd say my name's McCardell. And it's Lee McCardell. I mean, he was really known all around.
Sure.
And I remember, somebody said, "Are you related to Lee McCardell?" I said, "He's a distant cousin." I just say that, okay? But I said it to one of the PR people one time. And Lee said to me, this guy had told him that I said, "Her cousin." We weren't. I said, "Look, everywhere I go, it's Lee McCardell. And I said, I just say he's my cousin."
Absolutely.
So he
So you got out of the Army and you came back to, that's when you started.
Well, they didn't have an opening in Washington because these people had all come back. That's the AP now. I wanted to go back to the AP.
Okay.
So I came over to the Sun, and Bob Kanish was the photo director, and he gave me a job as a news photographer. $40 a week.
That was right before you got married. No, yeah, that was right before you.
I was making $90 a week when I got married.
90.
Mm-hmm.
You were rich.
Yeah, I was in those days. Believe me,
Wow.
it was a good salary. Yeah.
Thinking back over your life, what do you think it is that you're most proud of?
My wife.
Your life.
Life, right?
You know, to now, you might still have something to come that will make you proud, but up until now.
Well, I think having the kids, and all most of the kids have been pretty good. We have a few different ideas, but they have a few words every once in a while. But I guess my family. Mm-hmm.
If there's anything that you could do a do-over on, what would that be?
I don't know. You're catching me off guard. I don't really know.
Right.
I mean, I don't sit around worrying about it.
You don't,
things
do
like
you have
that.
any regrets?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I wonder why the Lord has me hanging around so long. So, so we had one guy who used to say, "Well, he's just getting even with you for all that rotten stuff you did for a long time," which was I didn't think I did rotten stuff, but.
Sure you didn't.
But then, when you get back to work, anyhow, the United Press International did not have a bureau. They had a bureau here with about 2 or 3 writers, but they did not keep a photographer here. They had a stringer. You know what a stringer is?
Yep.
Okay.
Freelancers.
Well, yeah.
They take a picture and they get paid, but they weren't employed. I was a
Well,
striker.
that's it. Or they might. I became their permanent stringer. Okay. Let's put it this way. The Orioles came here in '54. The Colts, the football team, came in '53, a year before. A fellow named Josh Cosden, who was a good friend of mine, he was stringing for UPI on the side. And he went with the Hercules Company, which I don't know if you know what they are, but it's another story I can tell you. It's a good story. And as a matter of fact, that land and building and all is the what is the museum industry? Yeah, it's right now.
Oh,
Okay,
there many times.
okay. I remember that tug they have down there. The steam tug, the Baltimore it's called, I think. It's in the water. Anyhow, it was underground in the mud up in the Sassafras River. And the DuPonts, they own everything up there anyhow. So I remember going up there several days while they got it out finally and all. And then that's one of the assignments I had for the Sun.
I see.
But anyhow, I was telling you how the UPI fellow in charge, George Galen, asked me if I'd take. What I ended up doing was I covered every home game of the Orioles for maybe 24 years.
Wow.
And I had a dark room in the stadium. Now we're talking about the old stadium before Camden Yards.
Oh, wow.
You remember? Can you remember that station? I had a dark room and the transmitter and everything like that, because mainly it was for the pictures from the team that was visiting us.
Right.
You know, for the newspapers in their hometown. And I did that for those years. And I got a retainer every week. I think it was $20. Plus, I got paid another $20 or $30 more it amounted to the game. So that got our kids through, since I kept them in parochial schools.
Right, so your daughter said you had a lot of side jobs. Is that what she was reading?
Well, that's it. I can remember this. Yeah. No. That might be one of them.
Okay.
But I made pictures for, what was that boat company? Up in Middle River it used to be. They're not there now. A big boat company. But they'd have trials on the bay and stuff like that. Can you get it?
Covered up. There we go. Okay, so you did a lot of side photography jobs too.
Yeah,
Help out
I did. I got to know a lot of politicians. I did McCardell. You ever heard of Governor McCardell?
Sure.
And who was on?
He was governor when my mother was born.
That's right. McCardell, he had 2 terms as governor, but he also had 2 terms as mayor of Baltimore City. I did their inaugurations. I think he impressed me. I think they paid. I got about $2,800 for that. And stuff. I mean, that was money in those days.
Is this your photo?
No, I think that's Paul Hutchins, as a matter of fact.
This one's yours. William Donald Schaefer.
Oh, he's in a tank. And I'm just right up to it at Aberdeen. It's the day he retired as a reserve colonel.
Did you like him?
He was an all right guy. He used to call me Junior. I mean, and but he had a nickname for everybody. I don't know,
This is yours?
but I don't think he had friends. I think he had acquaintances. You understand?
Yes.
And the stuff that maybe shouldn't have been going on in city government didn't happen while he was in a position. In other words, he stayed off here. Like, I'm not going to throw names around because some other.
They're still around? Some of them are still around?
No. But their companies are. And stuff like lumber yards and stuff
Well, I
like
think
that.
he was a pretty beloved governor when he was there, and mayor.
Yeah, he got things done. Hilda May, that was his girlfriend, remember?
I do remember.
And she was friendly. I had a couple assignments with her, particularly over that fountain.
Yeah. Did you do that one?
I took it the day they dedicated it, and the thing is, I had just come from Stevenson University, or well, it was Villa Julie in those days,
Right.
and photographed of some kids from another school, grade school, going through those streams down there, getting up a crawfish or anything, anyhow. And I was a little muddy. And then I went to Annapolis. And I remember she said, come on inside, we're going to have the party. I'm not going in with that mud on me. So I didn't go. But she insisted I should, but yeah. Okay, well, this was, I do kind of remember this one.
I just wondered if it brought any memories back.
It was in South Baltimore. Yeah.
What do you miss about the old days, do you think?
I think
or maybe you don't miss it.
I think at the Sun, we had a staff that was very, how can I put it? I mean, we really got along well. I mean, there was no jealousies or no this and that. We really got along. There was some drinking, but it wasn't the time it affected their jobs. I mean, they'd go out and get a job.
Tell me about taking your kids to work with you.
Oh, yeah, I did. I used to take, I remember take Walter up there. Well, I'd lay down the ponies at Hassatig, or else. I took him to spring training one time.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's when, after he was having problems. You know, he had gotten married, and we didn't want him to, but I mean,
Who? Paul?
My son.
Paul Walter?
Yeah, he married. And anyhow, it didn't last very long. You know, it didn't expect it to. But we just said, I guess, went through with it because we didn't want to lose him. But the other side was her parents and all, they were kind of pushing it. So
I don't want to, I think Emily and Timmy are probably losing patience with me, maybe. I don't know. But I do want to ask a few other questions before we wrap up for Hadley's sake.
Well, I haven't really. I really go back to Washington. Okay. So, for instance, I made a picture of Skinny Wainwright, the general. Did you ever hear of him?
No.
Skinny Wainwright. When the war started, Corregidor, MacArthur was in charge, and he was a brigadier general then. President Roosevelt, sent 2 K9 boats, is that what they call them, those fast boats? The kind of Kennedy drove and see them. Anyhow.
I know what boat you mean when
Yeah, to get him out of Corregidor, because the Japanese were going to take over there. Okay? So that put Skinny Wainwright, commanding officer. And anyhow, after the war, he was skinny. Well, I mean, he was skinny. And I guess the Japanese camped him for the whole war. Didn't anyhow. A picture of him eating a hot dog at a Senators baseball game. That the Daily News and all, and they all used them. The Daily News, which was in New York, but that's where our AP, UPI, and all they are. Where they wanted their picture. I mean, they wanted to get in the Daily News and all full pages and all. And I took his picture in a hot dog with a full page. But the thing that had happened was, you ever heard of Tojo? Well, he's the guy that was a war master at Japan. And he did Harry Carey. You ever heard of Harry Carey?
Yes.
It's some kind of cut yourself in here. Right. I think I'm not sure. Anyhow, he had done it, and I knocked that picture off, his picture off, and for the, wait, and it went over right big. I got a note from Paul Miller. You ever heard of him? Paul Miller, he became head of all that, what's that paper that comes out daily out of Virginia, that, anyhow.
He was a big shot.
He was the head of the AP in Washington. Yeah, got a nice note. I think the note's over there somewhere.
So that was one of the things that you were proud of, do you think?
Well, I think I was proud of all of my pictures. Sonia Henney, you ever heard of her? Ice skater. Olympic Sonia Henney had her ice show in the 5th Regiment Army. And I was standing there waiting for it. I said to Ed Young, city editor, he said, just get a picture of the opening of the show. Well, I'm standing there, and about 200 and some people fall. The stands just collapse. They got it doubled. And Life magazine, huh?
At the 5th Regiment Armory?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a picture of that.
Yeah, it's heavy. I don't know.
It was a big deal when it happened.
It was, yeah. We had to go to court and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, you did?
Well, for with the pictures. I mean, she got away with. It broke the. Yeah, it's not a very good copy.
No. It's
Well.
So you saw it happen and you shot it while it was happening, and then.
Well, they were just getting back up by the time they got. They were when we had 4 or 5 speed graphics. He pulls the slide out, and you got one shot, and then he'd put it back in. You had to turn the slide around. You don't know anything about that.
I've seen them on movies.
Well, then, for instance, baseball, we called it the Big Bertha, but it was a huge, at least that long, and it had a gear shift on it, and you preset your bases, first, second, third, just like you're driving the old car. And the only thing is, the lens was, I guess, about a 640 millimeter lens, but it didn't have enough light to get out of the infield in the stadium, really, unless you were fast enough to reduce the speed, open the shutter, and the shutter stayed wide open because of the F4.5. Okay. Life magazine used that in the middle of in both pages. But they had stuff around it, but I mean, that was called a double truck. You ever heard of that? Double? Okay. And that got a lot of play.
So that was a big deal when that came out, I'm sure. I mean, who gets in Life magazine, right? Not many.
Well, then we would, they had it on their back page, miscellany they called it. And I got a picture of that of it was just right by Eastern High School, or there's a public school behind it. Anyhow, it was down in Lexington Market, and this child, it was from another country, eating an oyster. I remember he said oysters are an acquired taste, and she just had that expression on her. They're all around here somewhere. Or Susan's got a lot of
So
this
that
stuff.
was, are you saying that these are your favorite pictures, your most
Well,
memorable?
there some of them, yeah.
Some that you're most proud of?
Well, we got paid like $250 a page or something, or in life, and we were allowed to keep that money. And the Sun, it was not a real picture paper. It was more word. It just, here's how I explain the old. I'm talking about when the A.S. Abel Company owned it.
Yes.
Okay, you throw 10 names out. Okay, you got chairman of this bank, or you got, you name it, you got the big companies, all their chairmen, their directors one place, they're this or that. You understand?
Right.
They put their money back in the newspaper. They had all the money anyhow, but the main thing was to have a big deal. The Baltimore Sun at one time had the second number of foreign bureaus in any paper except the New York Times. And they opened their bureaus as the news moved. Lee McCardell opened the Rome bureau, and he told me he didn't care for it because he said, I'm a writer, I'd rather be back here.
Okay.
So he finally became assistant managing editor for the Evening Sun. And here, I don't know what they did here. You see this circle around this? That's not in the original picture, and that's not the one that got in the paper. So I don't know where it came from, but it's really, well, of
It's
course.
a horrible reproduction.
Yeah.
They were probably trying
Well,
to
they're not trying to. Yeah. Okay.
this one. Did I show you this one?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. So, if
I
you
mean,
could
Dan
travel-
Rodrigues and I used to go on stories together.
What's that?
Dan Rodrigues and
Oh,
myself.
I worked with Dan. I know
Did
Dan
He's
very
a nice
well.
guy. I got a couple letters from him over there when my wife died.
Oh, great.
And he's the one the other day. He had a column about it. His brother died. Eddie, his name is up in
I
Bus.
read
Did you read it? I sent
Dan
him
and I
a.
worked together at Channel 2, ABC.
Who?
Dan Rodrigues and I. He used to do a little show on the weekends while he was a columnist at the Baltimore Sun.
I told him, remember the day? I said, Dan, why don't you get the hell out of here and go up to news, one of the magazines like Time or something like that. I didn't care for Time that much, but U.S. News and the Early Report was a good place to go. And
If you could be a time traveler, would you like to go to the future or would you like to go back in time?
I think I'd have to go back. I don't, this kind of stuff, I'm not ready for that yet.
I always say the same thing. I would not want to see what's in the future. I'm not liking where we're going. The history, I mean, the past just seems so much more innocent.
I remember, by the way, on that picture that Harry Truman signed, he puts the date, August the 14th, 1945. He forgot that date. And he asked, what was that date? And I'll tell you one, we were at Jake Blaustein's house. That's the fellow that's in the center of that picture. You know Jake Blaustein? Okay. Well, he started out selling kerosene from the back of I don't know, a horse wagon or what. But he owned the American Oil Company,
Wow.
which he sold to BP,
Oh.
British Petroleum. Okay? And since then, they've opened Crown Central Petroleum. We were at his house that Truman had given they were $100 plate dinners then, I think,
Wow.
for Canada, in the Pikesville Armory.
Okay.
The Pikesville Armory. And anyhow, so I had about 7 pictures that were all taken at the, which I did not take. They were taken, and I did not take that picture. But everybody knew that in Europe, or rather the Japanese were going to sooner or later capitulate. And I had an assignment at the Swiss legation. Do you ever heard the Swiss? That was a neutral country, so the only way they communicated was between those two countries.
Right.
Now, even today, I think the Swiss have never had an embassy. They don't have an embassy here in this country. They call it legation. All right, and I took some pictures out there, and there's a switchboard up. Remember the old PBX boards that where you plugged in and all. This woman was an American, and she probably maybe 50. And I said, and the only American that worked in there, I understand. And I said, I gave her a card. If you hear anything, it's going to happen, let me know. I'm in Baltimore one day on my day off, and she called Kenny at the AP, and he called me, he said, get the next train over. And go right to the Swiss legation, stay there. He sent me, and those, and you know, they probably still have motorcycle riders. In other words, if a photographer makes pictures up on a hill or something, give it to the, and they take it back to the office or whatever they have to do. Although now they can pull them out of their pocket and hit something up there and not it back. And anyhow, I did that. And Max Presley, I remember the name, was charge d'affaires, as they called him, at the legation. And I said, well, they want me to stay overnight. He said, oh, if you're going to stay overnight. And he took his desk, pushed it like that, got me a pillow, and said, sleep on my desk. And I did. And the next day, of course, more press showed up because it was, you know, and so then when I left there, I asked him, he was delivering the message from Japan to the White House. And I said, I'll ride downtown with you. And of course he said, no, I know he would. He couldn't do that. Right. So I went over to Walter Reed Hospital after that and checked the guys that were wounded and all. And you know, it was not much excitement over there at all. It just wasn't. But downtown they were going crazy. Wow. VJ Day there.
Yeah. Did you photograph that?
Downtown? Mm-hmm. No, I'm stuck in the hospital.
Oh, right.
I mean, we had everybody else. We had a big enough staff and everything. But
if you could go back to any of the scenes that you were at, I mean, which would you like to revisit and shoot again? You know,
photography in those days, they were more interested in news. I remember, you know where the Coast Guard Yard is down in Pennington Avenue or something? Mm-hmm. Well, I think the bridge has been rebuilt, but I remember a car came through the barrier down into the water and got caught, luckily. And that was an interesting picture. Some guy sent me a copy of it from an Italian paper. I put it on the UPI wire and stuff like that.
Who was your favorite president? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, Truman.
Truman was your favorite because you met him? Or?
No, the buck stops here.
I see.
And that was him. Mm-hmm. Well, now, when I did out at I don't want to hold you up.
No, you don't.
What I did when we were at Jake Blaustein's house, I had about 7 pictures of his cabinet and everything that had been made in the White House that day of the Japan surrender. Mm-hmm. And when I went up to him, I took his drink out of his house, out of his arms, feet, hands, put it on the table. And he said to me afterwards, he said, why'd you take my drink? I said, well, I thought you wouldn't want to, picture in a paper. He said, I don't care. That's what he said. But
he doesn't care?
And so one of the guys, if I did my drinking, I did it at the pub on Chase Street. You ever heard of that one?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if, I doubt if he did. It was
Oh,
called,
I know Chase Street.
huh?
You know Chase Street.
Chase and, right, yeah, okay. It was called the Pub. And it was a big bookmaking place, actually. You took, when they tore the walls down, you could see you could get any horse race around the country. Pat Wiesner. They would leave here and take a railroad car to the sales down in Kentucky and all the horse sales and all
Right.
every year. And they'd go broke down there, betting horses and everything. And so they'd come back on a train or something like that. Well, anyhow, what I was trying to say, this one bartender at the pub, he told people I had made a drink for Harry Truman. And so they call me Truman's bartender.
Oh, that's sweet. That's not too bad to be known for.
But stuff like that, huh?
Who would you say has been somebody that you've admired, or that maybe you would say is your hero? Who would you identify as a hero?
Well, let's put it this way. I thought Governor Lane was probably the best governor. But he drank a lot.
Oh, he drank a lot?
Yeah.
But you thought he was a good governor anyway?
Yeah,
In spite of it?
he put the sales tax in. And it was 1%. And he told us right out, of 25 governors who put in the sales tax, 24 of them lost their next election. People were throwing pennies at him and everything, because it was 1%, a penny on a dollar. So McCardell beat him, a Republican, and what's the first thing McCardell did? He made it 2 cents. But I told you I photographed her. She had sworn in as mayor and this and that. He got paid for it by the Republican Party.
What about a favorite pope?
Pope?
Yeah, do you have a favorite pope?
I think Francis is probably as good. I don't, no. I've got a lot of, I'm catching up on my reading.
Have you ever been to the Vatican?
No.
Would you have liked to have gone? Have you traveled?
No, not much, except for what I did in the art. Well, and just Texas to our daughters and stuff like that. No, we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
We didn't have any money
And you always
to
had
do that kind of stuff. And,
Do you wish you had traveled some? Do you wish that you had traveled some?
yeah, it would have been nice. I would guess it would have been nice to go to that, the war crimes trials and stuff like that. Yeah,
That would have been fascinating. Nuremberg.
no, well, we always had kids. And, yeah.
Did you enjoy being a father?
Who?
Did you enjoy being a father?
I think so. Yeah.
Kids are funny. Hadley's hilarious.
Yeah, we never had any.
What would you like for Hadley and her cousins and her children and their children? What would you like them to know about you?
You know, I got a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And you see, have you seen all the on the door over there? That's when I was in the hospital. So down in this the end of 21. There was about 16 days in the hospital.
Oh.
Well, part of it at St. Joe and part of it down at the University of Maryland. And they're Margaret's children. She has 3 children. And two of her children are nurses. One, Courtney's a nurse practitioner, actually. And Sarah worked in the cancers. I don't know how she did it. Last stage stuff.
Right.
At Maryland.
Okay.
But she's started a new job. She hasn't started, I think it starts in the middle of March.
Yeah.
with Kaiser Permanente. So it's going to be 8 hours. She's going to be, what do they call it? She's going to do chemo, and what's the other?
Radiation?
No, it's invasive, it's something invasive.
Infusions?
Infusion.
Chemo infusions? Uh-huh.
It's called a confusion nurse and a chemo nurse.
Understood.
You see, at the University of Maryland at least, and probably in all the hospitals, the travel nurses, and that's most of them, cannot give chemo.
Oh.
They cannot give chemo.
She is valuable then.
Well, she's leaving there to go to this other place. She's been there 5 years, I guess now. She's going with. They're opening a new place up at Hunt Valley. Now I have a sister, the one that's in this picture. Well, she's on the end here. Yeah,
How's she
Mary.
doing?
Well, she's in rehab right now.
Okay.
It's at the Masonic home or
Bonnie Blank?
Bonnie Blank. Yeah.
Been there many times. I was a Job's daughter.
Huh?
I was a Job's daughter. Do you know what that is?
No.
Well, you have to have a Mason in your family
Oh,
to become
okay.
a Job's daughter. It was
Oh,
when I was
okay,
a
okay.
girl.
Well, what I remember about that place is every fall, that was all cornfields, all the way down through everything, you went into McCormick's and all that kind of stuff. And I'd go out there and take pictures of the volunteers. That's what they were. Then they had the big breakfast, and I always enjoyed that breakfast. And yeah, Bonnie Blank. And I don't even know if they use that term anymore or anything.
Bonnie
It's
Blank Masonic Nursing Home? I think that's what it's called.
I've got a more of a business type Masonic something or other. I think. Anyhow.
Tell me how you want the kids and the family to know you, to remember you
Yeah.
one day.
Well, I try to teach them to be honest or whatever you want to say. I mean, but I think that the Catholic Church is going to start making, I don't know right away, but they're going to be big strides. It's
Changes?
I think so.
In what way do you think? You think they're going to become more progressive? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And does that break your heart?
Yeah. Hmm?
Does that break your heart? Or
No,
is
it doesn't. It doesn't matter. I think it's more getting. They want to bring all the Christian churches together. I mean, they keep their own identity and all, but I think that's going to be a part of it.
Okay.
And also family unity. You know, families are in pretty bad shape right now.
Right.
And I think the family unity and the unity of the church, and that's a start.
Well, I think you've done a good job with your family unity. You've got a big family. I know I've heard Emily talk about you, and she has so much love and respect, and she reveres you. I think revere would be an appropriate word. And
Well, there's many different names in some of our families, or divisions of our family. It's Benjamin and Galo and Katie. I don't know. We'll have to.
that's what happens when you have girls.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
she's right now driving to, I think it's Tennessee. Her son and one Maggie, her daughter. She's got a boyfriend. He went to South Carolina, but I don't know, for some reason they're over Tennessee to anyhow, they're driving right now. They said
Oh,
they'll
okay.
get there about 10 o'clock tonight or something like that.
I did not know that.
It's about a 10. Then, of course, my sister Mary, you know, she lived in Maine. She had a nice little place up there right on the ocean. It really is nice. And her husband was a photographer's son, too. In fact, I got him his job. I did. I mean, he wanted, and my boss, Bob, I introduced him this, and he said he'd like to have a job. Bob said, if you go to, is it New York, some photo school up in New York, I'll give you a job when get an opening. And as a matter of fact, he went up there and he was up for a year, and he come home on weekends. And he didn't have a job right away, but he worked for Udell. You ever heard of them? A big portrait place. See the Blakesley Lane. There was another big place. They were around the 900 block Charles Street, actually, And when he got an opening, he hired him, and he worked about 25 years, 26.
Family members, relationships at the Sun.
Yeah.
Back in the day, anyway. So, what would be your closing message for Hadley?
Keep the faith. I thought I'd say that to a lot of people these days. In fact, I'm going to give you a card. You don't have to take it, but
I'll be happy to take it. Can you explain your message? Can you explain what you mean when you say keep the faith? I don't want to make any assumptions.
Well, I think you have to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, if you're a Christian anyhow. Because I don't think a lot of people that. They just think he's he's definitely a historical figure. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
But I don't know, if you want to.
Thank you.
That's a prayer I say every day.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know if you know anything about the rosary, but you don't have to say the rosary. You're not saying the rosary. But the rosary actually is the beads. They're just the beads to keep count of things. They do that in India and everywhere. Don't they? Those old men sit around with their beads and all.
I think it does cross some religious lines, but
yeah.
I grew up Lutheran.
Okay, well, Martin Luther was he was Catholic priest,
Catholic.
yeah.
When Timmy was little and Sarah was little, my two older children, we moved into a neighborhood that was a stone's throw from an Episcopal church, which is very much like the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
More so than the Lutheran Church.
I think the Lutherans pretty much like it too in a lot of ways.
But I raised them in an Episcopal church, and
okay.
So we don't see the Rosary, but very much. I think there's only like 2 books in the Catholic Bible that exist that are not in our Bible.
That's the Catholic Church did not stress the Bible and all. We didn't. The epistles and all now. I'm doing a lot of learning right now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because they didn't. I don't know. It was all like political. I mean, the Pope was the head of governments and everything else. It was there.
We have a lot of different rules that came out of the church, but going way back in the history of the Catholic Church, they were the rulers.
They were, yeah. There was no doubt about it. 2000. So, yeah.
But thank you for this. I will value this.
Okay.
And
well,
I will make sure that Hadley gets that message. Any other final thoughts to wrap up?
No, I think I wasted a lot of your time.
Not at all. I've been very interested.
Because I've been jumping around too much.
But, that's what happens when you're having conversations. Totally okay.
Yeah, you get off on different...
I didn't want you to come in and recite anything. I just wanted to have a talk with you and get some of your memories. And we've gotten some of your very interesting memories. Yeah,
like I've driven over a couple cameras and stuff like that.
Driven over them?
Yeah, you might take it out on the ground behind it. But I had my son down. We were doing a story on Eastern Shore streams where people were dumping tires and all that stuff. Well, it was pretty slippery, and I lost the camera down there. Once you get salt water in it, that was you threw. But the Sun didn't seem to care. They just buy another.
Any stories that you feel like never left you? Because I have some of those kinds of stories, having worked in news. I worked in print media first, and then 13 years in broadcast. So I do have a lot of stories that I really feel like I've never let go of, that still either bother me.
Well, I remember, what's a PBS guy that originally, he's not with them anymore, but he's with another station, I think.
O'Reilly?
No.
Jeff Salkin?
Maybe I wouldn't even. Anyhow, he was interviewed. I remember when the racial business, when they put, Southern High School was really where it started in Baltimore. And I was down there for a week. You know, I mean, I would go down each day for the week. And I've got a picture of a big white crowd, but a white guy punching a black fella right on the jaw. Like, it's a.
Did they print that picture?
That's my story. That picture is, and the reason I brought the fella up is that I said it was well, they call it editorial judgment.
I see.
And it's really what's the other word for it? Anyhow, my son included, they rushed in the library and they got the pictures out, and it was writing on the back, "Do not use," by the publisher's signature. It's see, that's where I don't get the word right now. I know they would say editorial judgment, but it's holding back news.
That sounds like it would have been a classic photo, iconic photo of that era.
It would.
Yeah. You know, like the little picture of Ruby walking into the school with the National Guard around her. That's pretty iconic for the desegregation photo time. Yeah. Was there a lot of that hostility and uprising during that segregation in Baltimore?
Only in '68.
68 was a big year?
Well, that's when King was killed. Martin Luther King.
And you were there for his speech on the plaza?
That was in '63. That was.
I heard that you were.
Yeah, I was there for that. Yeah, I have a dream speech.
Were you there when George Wallace was shot in Baltimore?
I was. They had me handing out assignments in a way. We had two-way radios. This particular assistant city editor, he didn't want to. Anyhow, I told him, I said, look, if we got a candidate for president, and it was Wallace was running for president, you remember?
Yes.
We should have a photographer with him. See, it's not actually, he was shot over near Landover or somewhere, and it would be the Post area. And one day, we made more money than the Post. The Post was not a big paper. Trying to think. I had to go for the UPI. It was a Sunday morning in Wallace, and they were all here. They had to give them a speech, I think, the night before. All redneck stuff.
Right.
But they were in the Holiday Inn at Joppa Road and Loch Raven Boulevard. You remember, it used to be a Holiday Inn. It's still a Hoboken. And I went out there, and I had my oldest daughter, Sally, and they invited us to breakfast. No, we didn't do that, but I did make pictures of them together, and I gave them to her. She died. I gave it to her, and to her husband. He never married. He's down in West Virginia. Never married or remarried. He just, anyhow.
Sally, your daughter?
Sally is my daughter.
The one who died?
She died of an aneurysm.
I met her daughter.
86. The picture right, the taller one right on the top, on the left.
Okay.
Now you see the one that's a little chubby in front of her?
Yes.
Huh?
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's Mary Angela. She's coming here, by the way, on the 25th this month. Her husband just died in Texas. They're in Texas, obviously, and she's a very shapely person now. I remember my father-in-law, who was a doctor. He says, "Stop used to tell Sarah, don't give that child so much bread, because it was putting the weight
You
on
liked
her.
him, but you didn't like the mother-in-law too much, did you?
What?
You liked your father-in-law?
But yeah, I did a lot. No, I got along with her in a way. I mean, no, she just didn't. She had one child in her mind, and that was her son.
Oh,
And just
no,
you just can't believe it, the crazy stuff. But
I see.
yeah, and
I've taken up a lot of your time, and I've really, really loved talking with
no,
you.
no, I enjoyed it.
Do you have any
Well, I only sit here anyhow. There, his mother lives right up here on Gautzer Boulevard, and it's huh?
Whose mother?
Jim's. That was my son-in-law.
Okay.
She's 91, I think,
Wow.
and she lives in her own house. Her husband was a doctor. Well, Sarah's family is. I think there were 7 doctors in four generations. They were all Hopkins. They all were at Hopkins. I mean, at least they went to medical school there.
How old are you today?
Hmm?
How old are you right now? 96?
6.
96. What do you want to do for your 100th birthday?
I'm not. I don't know that I'll be around for that.
For your 100th, you gotta make a plan now. That's a big one.
Well, see, I touched that.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not gonna. I need a operation, but I'm not gonna get it because
What kind
I'm
of operation?
too old.
No.
Gallbladder.
You're having gallbladder? You got gallstones?
I never had a gallstone or anything.
You got a blockage?
Yeah, they put a drainage in here, and he just said it was Dr. Foreman. He does a lot of it around these hospitals.
No.
Huh? You ever heard of him?
You should consider other than St. Joe's and maybe go into another hospital.
No, we're talking about. She asked me if I just told her the gallbladder. In other words, I'm at the point now. I'm just going to live as long as I can. I'm not going to go to get operations or anything like
You're
that.
not interested in
No.
We-
prolonging your
She
life?
can tell you more.
At 96.
Look at him, he's spry.
I
Yeah,
know.
but you.
And we say that, but the doctors say the insides aren't as spry as the outside.
Well, he put this. Foreman put this
Would you
drainage.
disagree with that?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know
No.
his inside, but I do know because I work for Union Memorial and Franklin Square, Harbor Hospital, Good Samaritan, that we've had patients in their 80s and 90s having
Yeah.
joint
Well,
replacements
this
and
parti-
open heart surgeries.
This particular doctor, a woman, said the oldest she's ever done is 94.
The surgeon,
The
yes.
surgeon.
The surgeons don't feel comfortable,
But that's St. Joe's.
but
That's a community
well,
hospital.
that's true. So where would you go then?
I mean, like Emily. Let me cut this.
Oh, sorry.
Well, Foreman. I went to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't seen a newspaper or the rest of that because I used the streetcar. And Kenny said, go get a picture of this 2-star general. Well, 2-star generals are not hard to find in Washington. There were a lot of generals, and they were bigger than that. I mean, 2-star, they had 4 now. So I went in his office, and he said to me, well, you're the first one here. I said, okay. So it was Leslie Groves. You know who he was?
No, sir.
Well, he was in charge of the whole Manhattan Project, which was the atom bomb.
Oh, right. Yeah. Wow.
And and I didn't know what the hell he
Did
had
you
done.
photograph him?
Oh yeah, I got his picture and all, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are all they on? I guess that was UPI at that time. When
It
you
was
were
AP. I was
AP.
living in Washington at
I
that
see.
time. It was only 4 months. Yeah.
Did you tell how you slept on the desk?
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
got that.
did. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And
Did you ever meet anybody like the Beatles or Elvis?
I've photographed the Beatles when they were here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they were in the what do they call it? It was a civic center in those days.
Yeah. That would have been a big one.
And what about
Well, no, that was just a noise racket to me.
Is that right? You didn't,
Yeah,
you didn't like that
I
music.
didn't care for that. But Lock Humphreys was the captain in charge of the pickpocket squad in the Baltimore Police Department and the VIP squad. So he took care of their security.
Yeah.
Okay, and he took us all over. They stayed in the Holiday Inn, which was right behind. What do they call it now? It's a civic center, the Royal Farms, whatever it's called.
Right.
the arena?
Arena,
The
whatever.
Marina Club.
Yes.
Marina Center?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, they were just noise rackets. I mean, most of that music still just noise to me.
So you weren't a fan of the Beatles when they came? Did you think they were wild?
No, those kids were going crazy out there. I remember at first Ed Sullivan had him on his show.
Yeah. What about Elvis? Did you ever meet him or
No,
photograph
I
him?
never met Elvis.
Dad, what was the one where the stands fell?
Well, I told her Estonia Henny was the ice skater on that.
So what was your favorite music as you going through? Big
No,
band? Like big band music?
Yeah, big bands.
There was a hotel down in Baltimore that had big band that played on Tuesday nights, and I took my grandfather there when he turned 80.
Emerson,
I don't remember where now. It was
Lord Balmer, Southern. They were the big hotels.
okay.
Belvedere.
I mean, it wasn't. This was probably 20 years ago, so it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
But he loved it. I knew that he liked that kind of music. He wasn't into the rock or anything.
You like Frank Sinatra and all that?
Well,
Somewhat. What's the one that you like the Christmas?
Huh?
You like the Christmas
Yeah.
music from? Who do we listen to? I can't.
Well, it was all. I like that stuff from the Second World War.
Yeah.
The sky, the cliffs of Dover, and the white cliffs of Dover. You ever heard of that?
No, I
Well,
might
that's-
recognize it if I heard it, but I don't know the name.
And then they had some funny ones about Hitler and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
He's
You
a
know,
lot of fun.
He
See,
is. That's
during the
it.
Second World War, there were two things you have to remember. First of all, you had sugar was rationed, butter was rationed, this and that. It wasn't that they had enough. The army had enough, and the military had enough, but it was to make you know that we were at war. That they just you got 3 gallons or 3.5 gallons of gas a week.
That's all you can get.
That's if you had an A sticker. If you worked in a shipyard or something like that, you might get a B sticker, which would give you a couple gallons more.
And that was right here in
But there was a big black market.
Oh.
They had food stamps. You could buy a food stamp for 25 cents, and that would give you 3.5 gallons. You paid about 19 cents a gallon for the gas.
Wow.
But on the other hand, you weren't making much.
Right.
So everything seems to be a little relative.
Yes. True.
Uh,
Here we are at $3.50
I know.
a gallon again
It's crazy.
for gas.
Well, it's all a racket now.
It's all politics.
There's a picture of the boats by there. That was a
Oh, I saw-
skipjack
He took that.
race.
I saw that
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
when I was looking up
Huh?
pictures.
when you were looking at pictures.
Archived pictures from the Baltimore Sun. I've had to deal with your son Paul,
Oh, did
Oh,
it?
you have?
but I didn't know, of course,